Part 1. The wedding toast that cut too deep. They say weddings are supposed to bring families together. But I learned that day, they can also tear something apart you didn't even know was broken. I straightened my tie one last time, looking at my reflection in the cracked mirror of my small apartment. The invitation sat on my kitchen counter, unopened for days, before guilt finally made me RSVP. I didn't want to go. I wasn't ready to face everyone. My brother, Evan, was everything our parents ever wanted. Tall, handsome, successful, at least by their standards. The prodigal son. And then there was me, Daniel, the one who gave up on his career dreams. The one who ran a failing little shop, as my father often said when he thought I wasn't listening. I should have stayed home. The wedding was held at one of the fanciest venues in town. Glittering chandeliers, champagne fountains, hundreds of guests. I took a seat toward the back, praying nobody would notice me. But of course, Evan spotted me during his speech. He was drunk on attention, and a little on whiskey, too. I just want to say, Evan slurred slightly, lifting his glass high. I'm grateful to have people here today who show what real success looks like. He paused, and what failure looks like, too. The guests laughed. He winked in my direction. And hey, if my marriage ever tanks, maybe I'll open a failing coffee shop, too. The laughter grew louder. My cheeks burned. Every pair of eyes seemed to turn my way. Even my parents smiled awkwardly. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. Without waiting for dessert, I slipped out quietly. The night air slapped my face as I stumbled outside, humiliated. The laughter still rang in my ears. I leaned against the stone pillar near the valet stand, trying to breathe, trying not to cry. That's when I heard footsteps. Firm, deliberate. A man's voice spoke behind me. "Ma'am," he said quietly, respectfully. I turned. It was Mr. Clayton, Evan's boss, the head of a company that had recently signed Evan onto a massive project. He gave me a small smile, not the fake kind people give at weddings. A real one, an almost knowing one. "You haven't changed a bit," he said, eyes gleaming. My stomach twisted. He knew. But how? Mr. Clayton adjusted his cufflinks, nodded once, and disappeared back into the reception hall. I stood there, frozen, heart pounding in my ears. The world thought they knew me, thought I was a joke. But tonight, the lines between truth and lies were starting to blur, and the real story was only just beginning. Part 2. The truth buried beneath the laughter. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Evan smirk. He had always been a golden boy, while I was the afterthought. But Mr. Clayton's words kept echoing in my mind. "Ma'am," it wasn't just a slip of the tongue. It was an old code, a title from a part of my life no one knew about. 5 years ago, after a brutal breakup and financial ruin, I disappeared from everyone's radar. Officially, I failed at running a small startup cafe. Unofficially, I reinvented myself. Under a different name, hidden behind shell companies, I launched a cybersecurity firm. Quiet, invisible, protecting businesses from hacks, breaches, and lawsuits. It started small, just me and a laptop. But then word got around. The ghost shield, they called us. No one knew who was behind it. Clients trusted us because we stayed out of sight. One of those clients was Mr. Clayton's firm. I remember the contract, the signatures, the secure meetings. He knew exactly who I was, and he respected it. Meanwhile, Evan paraded around, thinking he landed a huge promotion on his own merit. I laughed bitterly to myself in the dark. If only he knew. If only anyone knew. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. "If you're ready to talk, meet me at Joe's Diner. 9 a.m. See, Mr. Clayton." I hesitated. I could walk away, stay small, stay invisible. Or I could find out why he called me now, after all these years. I grabbed my jacket. Joe's Diner smelled like burnt coffee and old dreams. Mr. Clayton sat in the corner booth, sipping tea. When he saw me, he smiled, that same respectful smile. "You built something extraordinary, Daniel," he said quietly, once I sat down. "Even if your family can't see it." I swallowed hard. I didn't do it for recognition. He nodded. "Still, recognition's coming anyway." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of documents Evan had recently signed. New projects. Big investments, all connected indirectly to my firm. To me, without knowing it, Evan had built his new empire on the foundation I laid down 5 years ago. My hands trembled slightly as I closed the folder. Mr. Clayton leaned in. If Evan knew whose shoulders he was standing on, he left the sentence unfinished. I stared at the folder, feeling my world tilt sideways. I wasn't just the family disappointment anymore. I was the ghost in their machine. The question now was, what was I going to do about it? Part 3, Ghost from the Past. The folder Mr. Clayton handed me sat on my kitchen table for days, untouched. Every time I looked at it, I felt sick. Not because I was angry, but because it proved how much my own family never really saw me. They celebrated Evan's wins like he was some kind of hero. Meanwhile, the foundation beneath his success was me. And now, I had to decide whether to pull the rug out from under him. I wasn't sure I had the heart for it, until she showed up. It was late afternoon when the knock came. I opened the door and nearly dropped the coffee mug in my hand. Mara, I breathed. I hadn't seen her in almost 6 years. She used to work with me, back when Go Shield was just an idea scratched out on diner napkins. We had been friends, almost more than friends, once. Mara stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Same sharp eyes, same no-nonsense attitude. I heard about the wedding, she said, setting her purse down on the table. You okay? I shrugged. I'm used to being the family joke. She tilted her head. You shouldn't be. Then she slid a flash drive across the table. What's this? I asked. Proof, she said grimly. Proof your brother's new golden boy reputation is built on stolen software. I stared at her. What are you talking about? Mara sighed, sitting down. Months ago, Evan's company acquired a tech startup. Part of that startup's assets included code you and I wrote years ago, code you never released publicly. Someone dug into old servers, stole the prototype, and packaged it like it was their innovation. Evan's new job is managing that product rollout. He's knee-deep in it, Daniel. He just doesn't know it. I leaned back in my chair, stunned. My code, my work, used to build Evan's empire, all while he mocked me to my face. Mara's voice softened. You have a right to expose him, Daniel, before he ruins more than just your name. I turned the flash drive over in my hands. It felt heavier than it should have. If I do this, I said quietly, it'll destroy him. Mara didn't flinch. Maybe he needs to be destroyed, she said, before he destroys you first. The lines between right and wrong blurred in my mind. What was justice? What was revenge? And was there really a difference anymore? That night, I plugged in the flash drive. One by one, the files opened. Old prototype documents, authorship signatures, timestamps that couldn't be faked. My fingerprints were everywhere. And Evan's signature sat proudly atop the contracts, signing deals based on lies he didn't even know were lies. I leaned my forehead against the cool glass of my window, staring out at the city lights. My brother, my own flesh and blood. He didn't just mock me. He built his life on me. And the world, our family, everyone, they cheered him on while I was left to rot. But not anymore. Not after tonight. Part 4. When the house of cards fell. The next few days blurred into one long, sleepless stretch. I kept rehearsing what I'd say to Evan, how I would confront him, how I would make him see. But when the moment came, none of the rehearsed words mattered. It was a Thursday afternoon. The office building where Evan now worked loomed tall over the city, its glass windows gleaming like knives in the sun. I waited in the lobby, hands shoved deep in my jacket pockets, ignoring the curious stares from passing interns and assistants. Finally, Evan appeared, polished, smug, completely unaware that the ground was about to collapse under his feet. When he spotted me, his smile faltered. Maybe it was the look on my face. Maybe it was something deeper, something only brothers could sense. He walked over, fixing his tie. Didn't expect to see you here, he said casually. You finally thinking about getting a real job? It stung even now. But I didn't react. Not yet. Let's talk, I said, my voice low. Somewhere private. He shrugged, amused, and led me into a side conference room. Frosted glass walls. A long polished table. Too clean, too sterile. Perfect place for a funeral. I closed the door behind us. You signed contracts without reading them, I said flatly. Evan frowned. What are you talking about? I tossed the folder onto the table. It slid across the surface and stopped in front of him. Inside, copies of the software blueprints, the time-stamped prototypes, the ownership documents. All mine. All undeniable. Evan flipped through the pages, his cocky smile slowly slipping away. I don't understand, he muttered. You don't have to understand, I said. You just have to accept it. He looked up, eyes narrowing. This is nothing. This is the foundation of the company you're about to represent. I finished for him. The same company that just signed you to a 7-figure contract based on stolen work. His mouth open, closed. I didn't know, he said finally, voice cracking a little. I know, I said quietly. And that's the tragedy. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Then he straightened his back, the old arrogance creeping back in. You have no proof I knew about any of this, he said, trying to regain control. You can't ruin me over something I didn't even do on purpose. I almost laughed. You think this is about ruining you? I said, this isn't revenge, Evan. This is a reckoning. The door opened behind me. Mr. Clayton stepped inside. He nodded at me briefly, then turned his steely gaze to Evan. We know, Evan, he said simply. We know everything. Evan's face went pale. Clayton dropped a second folder onto the table. Internal memos, flagged emails, contracts Evan had signed without due diligence. Enough to tank his career. Enough to blacklist him from every major tech company on the coast. You have two options, I said, stepping closer. Own up to it publicly. Apologize. Admit you didn't build this empire yourself. Or fight it, and watch it all burn anyway. Evan sank into a chair, head in his hands. Why are you doing this? He whispered. The question hit harder than I expected. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Because you humiliated me, I said, voice breaking despite myself. Because you built your dreams out of the ruins of mine. And because, somewhere along the way, you forgot that we were supposed to be brothers, not enemies. The room was suffocatingly silent. Finally, Evan looked up, tears shining in his eyes. Is there any way back from this? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. I walked out without looking back. Behind me, I heard the sound of Evan's world crumbling to dust. Part 5, The Reckoning at Home. Word spread faster than I thought it would. By the weekend, everyone in town seemed to know. At the coffee shop, at the grocery store, whispers in the aisles, pity in the checkout clerk's eyes. Did you hear about Evan? The golden boy. Not so golden after all. I should have felt satisfied, vindicated. But all I felt was empty. This wasn't victory. This was loss layered on top of loss. On Sunday, Mom called. Her voice cracked on the first word. Daniel, she said, can you come over? I hesitated, heart thudding dully in my chest. Please, she whispered. We need to talk. Against my better judgment, I went. The house looked the same as it always had. White picket fence, faded American flag by the porch. But somehow it felt smaller now. Sadder, like it had aged overnight. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Mom sat at the kitchen table, wringing her hands. Dad stood by the sink, arms crossed, face unreadable. And Evan sat slumped at the table, staring blankly at a cup of cold coffee. I closed the door quietly behind me. No one spoke for a long moment. Finally, Mom stood and came toward me, hands trembling. I'm sorry, she said. Just like that. No grand speeches. No justifications. Just 3 words, raw and broken. I'm sorry we didn't see you, she continued, voice shaking. We were so proud of Evan. We didn't want to admit that maybe we overlooked you, that maybe we were wrong. Dad cleared his throat, eyes glassy. I was proud of you too, he said roughly. I just didn't know how to say it when your path didn't look like Evan's. I thought you failed, but you didn't. We did. The words hit harder than any insult ever could. All the years of feeling invisible, overlooked. They cracked open inside me. I didn't even realize I was crying until Mom pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry, she whispered again and again, like she could scrub away the years with apologies. When I finally pulled away, Evan stood up slowly. He looked smaller somehow. Not the larger-than-life brother I grew up envying. Just a man who had made too many wrong turns and didn't know how to find his way back. I messed up, he said hoarsely. I don't even know how to start fixing it. For a second, I thought about walking out, leaving him to wallow in the mess he helped create. But something inside me, some stubborn, broken part, refused. We start by telling the truth, I said. And for the first time in years, Evan nodded without arguing. Later that night, as I sat alone in my apartment, a single text lit up my phone. From Evan. Thank you, Dan, for not letting me fall farther than I already had. I stared at the screen for a long time, emotions churning inside me. Maybe forgiveness wasn't a thunderclap. Maybe it was a slow, painful thaw, one small moment at a time. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something better. Part 6. Redemption Under New Skies. A few months passed. The world moved on like it always does. New scandals. New successes. Evan's name faded from the headlines, replaced by shinier disasters. But the damage, the real damage, was done at home, not in the newspapers. He lost his job. He sold his downtown condo, moved back in with our parents for a while, trying to piece together what was left of his reputation. I didn't gloat. I didn't visit much either. Some wounds, even when they start healing, still ache when you touch them. Instead, I focused on my own life. Ghost Shield grew faster than I ever expected. Not flashy, not loud, just steady, reliable growth. Exactly the way I liked it. I bought a modest house outside the city. A small garden, a creaky porch swing, enough space to breathe. Peace. It didn't erase the past, but it gave me room to build something better. Then one day, Mom called again. We're having a family dinner, she said, voice nervous. Nothing fancy, just, we'd like you to come. I almost said no, almost hung up, but something stopped me. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. Maybe it was about choosing to stay, even when you remembered everything. So I said yes. When I pulled up to the old house, Evan was already outside, helping Dad set up a secondhand grill. He looked up when he saw me, a flicker of nervousness crossing his face. I nodded at him. He nodded back. Small steps. Inside, the table was crowded with too much food. Mom's way of apologizing without using words. We sat around the table, awkward at first. Spoons clattered against bowls. Dad coughed too loudly. Mom pretended not to notice the tension. Then Evan stood up, glass of water in hand. No champagne this time. I know I'm the last person who should be making a toast, he said, voice rough with nerves. But if it's all right, I'd like to say something. The room went still. He cleared his throat. I spent most of my life thinking success looked a certain way. Big titles, big checks, big applause. He glanced at me across the table, and I thought anyone who didn't chase that was just lost. I was wrong. Mom covered her mouth, eyes shining. Evan's voice cracked. I didn't just hurt myself. I hurt my brother. I hurt my family, because I was too proud to see the truth. He lifted his glass slightly toward me. To Daniel, he said softly, the real success in this family, the real leader, and the man I failed to respect when it mattered most. The room blurred through my tears. I lifted my own glass, hand trembling. We clinked them together, a small sound, barely a whisper, but it echoed louder in my heart than all of Evan's wedding guests' laughter months ago. After dinner, we sat outside as the sun went down. No big speeches, no grand gestures, just two brothers on a porch swing, passing a bottle of cheap beer back and forth, saying all the things we couldn't say out loud. With silence. Above us, the stars blinked on, one by one. Quiet, steady, unnoticed by most. Kind of like me. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. Wilted flower, end of story, wilted flower.